think we're going to get started. 6:30. Welcome everybody to our financial aid night. We're happy that you're all here. We're going to talk a little bit about the financial aid process tonight. So for those of you that I haven't met, my name is Kathy Farr, and I'm a counselor here at the high school. The other presenters that we'll have tonight are Stephanie Voigt, did I get that right, from NWTC, Karen Durbick from St. Norbert College, and Tiffany Binish from the Denmark State Bank. All right, so I'm only going to talk to you briefly, but the one thing I do want to mention is scholarships. We do have a list of scholarships that I put on the website for students and parents to look at. I'm going to switch over here quick. So right on the Denmark District website, under District, just scroll down and click on scholarships, and there's the list. So I encourage students and parents to look at it periodically. I update it as soon as I get something sent to me, but that information is there for students and parents to access. Look it over if there's something that applies to you. There'll either be a website that you can go to, or the application will be available in student services, and that information is all on there. Also, I wanted to mention that the local scholarships, so those are the ones sponsored by Denmark organizations, are available in late March to early April. Packets of information will be available to the students when that time of year comes. Well, this is the information about accessing the scholarship list. Where else could somebody look for scholarships? One recommendation might be with your employers. Maybe they offer some scholarships for children of employees. There's some other websites you can check. The first one, FastWeb, students will use that one from time to time. And you go in, kind of create a profile, answer some questions about yourself, and then they'll forward any scholarships onto you that fit your profile. One donor that I did want to mention is called Scholarships Inc. And actually they represent a lot of different scholarship donors. They were here today and they talked to the senior class, gave some information about how to access the application, and we're really encouraging any student who's planning to go on to a four-year college or to a technical college to go to the Scholarships Inc. website and complete an application. Because as I said, they represent many scholarship donors. So filling out one application puts you in the running for a lot of scholarships. And what they told the students today is 48% of students who complete an application are awarded a scholarship. So the odds are in your favor. Now, one of the criteria for that application is completing the FAFSA, and that's what you're here to hear about tonight. One other thing I'll mention is the TIP grant. And this is a grant, so that's money that you get based on some of these criteria. There's an application. If a student can meet two of the criteria that I listed on there, it's probably worthwhile to complete the application. I don't have those applications yet. Hopefully I'll get those sometime soon. But if your son or daughter meets two of the criteria, they might want to come into student services and get that application as well. If you have questions, go ahead and call me or email me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Now, I don't want to take up too much time because we do want to hear a little bit more about FAFSA and the process of applying for that. So I will turn the mic over to Karen.
I'm going to start out talking about what is financial aid, and then Stephanie will follow me and talk about actually filing the FAFSA and the process for doing that. Here are a few of the items we're going to be discussing tonight. Financial aid. Financial aid is meant to bridge the gap between what the FAFSA says that you should be able to pay towards your child's education and what the education costs. In order to do this, each school needs to put together a cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is made up of direct costs and indirect costs. The direct costs are what shows up on your student account, your bill from the school, like tuition, mandatory fees. If they're living on campus, you'll have a room charge and a meal plan charge. The indirect cost is an average that schools determine what the student would have spent in like personal expenses, transportation expenses, and things like supplies. They can vary from school to school because each school doesn't charge the same amount for like tuition or room and meal plans. So the cost of attendance can vary from each school. There we go. Then there's an EFC, which is expected family contribution. That is determined when you file the FAFSA form. It goes to a federal processor and is run through a large federal formula. The results, after looking at your information, will come up with an EFC. The EFC stays the same no matter what school you apply to. So when you have the cost of attendance that the school has determined and you subtract that EFC, the expected family contribution, that's how your financial need is determined. Here's a little chart that kind of gives you an example. You can see how at a school that their cost of attendance would be $40,000. If you have an $8,000 EFC, you're going to show a $32,000 financial need at that school. Versus a school that was $12,000 and they have an EFC of $8,000. At that school, you would show a financial need of $4,000. Each school will look at what funds they have available to determine as much of that financial need as possible. Financial aid is made up of two types. There's gift aid and self-help aid. Gift aid is scholarships and grants. Self-help aid is loans and employment. Scholarships is money that does not need to be paid back. It is usually made, scholarships are usually determined based on merits such as like ACT, high school GPA. It might be a skill set as far as like if you're good in music, if you, some schools have music scholarships, or in a characteristic like if you've been involved in a lot of leadership opportunities through high school. Some schools might have a leadership scholarship. So you would need to check with the schools you're applying for to see what type of scholarships they might offer and what criteria is needed to get them. Grants is money that does not need to be paid back, but is generally based on a financial need. Loans is part of the self-help aid, and students borrow loans to help meet that gap. And we really encourage to take a good look to see what you actually need and to not borrow more than what is actually needed. The loans are a great investment in the future. Recently we were at a conference and there was a survey done, and they gave us the results of the survey that said families were more comfortable having their students borrow $25,000 for a car than they were to have their students borrowing $25,000 towards their education. Where a car lasts a matter of a few years, where your education is yours for a lifetime. Then there's the other part of self-help aid is work study. Some schools have work study programs, so you want to check with the school to see if there's any type of on-campus employment available. The students generally get paid by a paycheck, and they can either use it to go towards their direct costs and have it applied right to their student bill, or they can use their paychecks to go towards some of those indirect costs. Main sources of financial aid come from the federal government, the state government, from the college or university itself if they have a financial aid program, and then the outside sources like Kathy talked with the private scholarships. The largest form of financial aid does come from the federal government. It is awarded based on, most of it is awarded based on financial need, And you do have to file a FAFSA each year to be eligible for any federal aid. State, oops, oh yeah. Here are some of the federal programs that they offer. Each school will look to see which program you're eligible for based on the criteria of the information on the FAFSA. The only two where you might want to bring it to your school's attention is if you think you might be eligible for the Iraq or Afghanistan grant. We wouldn't have that information at the time we're doing a financial aid package. And then also if your child's interested in going into the teacher education program, it says it's a teach grant, but there's a lot of stipulations with that. If you have a son or daughter thinking about going into the teacher education program, you may want to go and Google federal teach grant and look at what all the criteria is. And then certainly if you have any further questions, you can call our school and we can help you with any questions you have on that. State grants, they usually have to have a residency requirement to be eligible for a state grant. They also, most of them are based on financial need, although there are some merit state scholarships. You do have to file a FAFSA form in order to determine if you're eligible for a state grant. Well, and for the deadlines for Wisconsin, it's kind of like they offer them until their money's used up. So we generally tell people to they go off of the date your FAFSA was submitted to the federal processor. So we usually tell students try to file as early as possible. Some schools have like a March 1st preference date. Some schools have an April 1st preference date. Check with your schools to find out what the preference date is to make sure you don't lose out on any aid that could have been eligible for it. And then some colleges and universities have financial aid available as well. They're going to base it most often on financial need, but they might also have a scholarship program which would be based on merit. And they will also use the information provided on the FAFSA. And each school could have a different deadline. So you'd really want to make sure, check with each school you're applying for to find out what is their FAFSA deadline, do they have any scholarship application deadlines, do they have any institutional funding deadlines, or do they require a separate institutional form in order to get financial aid? A lot of schools will just require the one form, but there are some schools that may require a separate application as well. Private sources. This is some of the areas that private sources are available, and Kathy pretty much went through this where she posts them on the Denmark website of anything that comes through. College and university get information on private sources as well, but those are usually generally targeted towards continuing students because the freshman students are still in high school. Any scholarships available to incoming freshmen, that information is usually given to the high schools. Another area to look for private scholarships is like if you belong to any type of civic organization or if your church offers a scholarship, you may want to check with them. And your employers. Some employers offer scholarships to your children, or if you yourself as a student, they might have some type of educational benefit for you. Next up is the FAFSA process, and Stephanie will bring you through on how to apply for a FAFSA.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Foyt. I just mentioned earlier I'm from NWTC. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go over the FAFSA process. I just want to see a show of hands. How many are senior students that are here that are seniors right now? Okay, so all of this that we're going to go over, we're going to go over how to apply for financial aid. This is what you're going to be doing very soon. So, and juniors, if there's juniors here, you will be doing this next year. But just so you know, you'll be doing this very soon here. So free application for federal student aid. It is a free application, so make sure you do pay attention that you're at the right website when you do go to apply for financial aid. This is what it stands for, free application for federal student aid. Basically, what it is it's a form that just collects all of your information from personal information, like demographics, to your taxes and your assets and things like that. And we mentioned earlier this expected family contribution. When you fill out the FAFSA, you get, at the end, you generate a number that's called an expected family contribution, and that is what is used to determine what you're going to be eligible for. The schools use that number to determine what you're eligible for. It can be filed anytime during the academic year, but it is available as of January 1st, so it already is available. You just want to make sure that you do have to apply every year for this application. It always comes out the first of the year. So college, we mentioned colleges may have priority dates, so you might want to just check with each college to see when they have a preferred date that you fill out the FAFSA. Doesn't mean it's necessarily a deadline, but it's a preferred date that they can maybe guarantee you that they'll process it at a certain time or offer you certain funds if they do have those available. Each school is different, so just check with the college. FAFSA on the web, as I said, it's FAFSA.gov is the website. This is just kind of a snapshot of what it looks like. It is available, and you want it, this is the FAFSA on the web. You can go online and print out a worksheet that actually has all the questions that are on the FAFSA. You can print that out ahead of time and fill it out, and then go on and fill it out that way if you prefer. Just the pre-application worksheet. A really good reason to you can fill it out paper, but a really good reason to fill it out electronically. It has a built-in edit, so it'll let you know if you did something wrong, if something isn't matching. It won't let you submit it if you think there's an error. It has a skip logic, so it'll know, like, you don't have to answer this question, go on to the next. And you can link to the IRS. People get really, that's I think where they get hung up with filling out a FAFSA, is they don't know where to look on their taxes to fill out the form. But if you use the FAFSA on the web, you can link to the IRS. You can link directly to the IRS, and they will pull your tax information. And it doesn't apply for everyone. So, you know, some people, they think something's wrong if they can't link to the IRS. It doesn't work for everyone, and I'm going to kind of go over some that it may not work for. But if you do have that option, definitely use it, because then you know that the data is accurate, and it sometimes can eliminate some paperwork that you have to turn into the financial aid department at the school. As I said, the FAFSA on the web also, it's more detailed. It tells you if you get stuck on a question, it's going to say, you know, look at, if you have these assets, you know, it has instructions for each question, so you can read through it as you're filling it out, and it'll tell you exactly where to look on your taxes, or, you know, what assets, anything, net worth, investments, things like that. It'll tell you what to include and what not to include. And you can check the status online. And the really great thing is it saves that information, so you have to apply every year. So it kind of, they'll save a lot of information, so you just go in and plug in the new number. So it gets, you know, less and less time to fill it out every year that you do it. And this is the IRS data retrieval. Like I said, if it matches, it's going to pull your information directly from the IRS and put it into your FAFSA. The data retrieval tool isn't going to be available until early February. So if you file your taxes electronically, the FAFSA on the web would be available, or I'm sorry, the IRS data retrieval would be available 2 weeks after that. If you file paper taxes, it would be about 6 weeks. You don't have to do it, but it's definitely, like I said, better if you can. So if you filed an amended tax return, if there wasn't a social security number entered on the application, or if a student or parent filed, if they were married but filed separately, you wouldn't be able to use it. To submit the FAFSA application, you do have to sign it electronically, and you can get a PIN number. That's how you sign it electronically. Does anybody know if they already have a PIN number? Any parents? Maybe fill them? Okay. So that's the PIN number that you're going to use for filling out the application for this student as well. So parent gets a PIN number and student gets a PIN number. They're lifetime numbers. Student will use the same PIN number every year that they apply, and parent will use that same PIN number for as many applications as they fill out, whether it be for parent, whether it be for another son or daughter, or you know, if it was in a past, or if you're going to have one in the future as well, it's the same PIN number. As I mentioned, you can get a FAFSA on the web worksheet. Basically, it's just a document that summarizes the information on the FAFSA. You can just fill it out and then go online and fill out the application. It just makes it a little bit easier if you want to do that way. You can get it right on the website. Information that they're going to ask for on the FAFSA application include your social security number, citizenship, marital status, drug convictions, selective service registration. You do have to be registered with selective services. It's going to ask you in order to get financial aid. So it's going to ask if it's a male student, if they're registered with selective service. If they're not, they can say register me. So even if they're 17 when you fill it out, FAFSA, they will keep that information and submit it to selective service to register once he does turn 18 years old. And the level of parents' school completion, just some of the information. And then it's going to ask a series of questions related to a student's dependency. In general, a student is considered dependent and required to provide parents information until they're 24, or if they can answer one of these questions, which are things like, are they orphaned, or to the court, if they were determined by their school district to be homeless, if they, I'm trying to think, if they're a veteran, things like that they're going to ask a series of questions. And so if they answer no to all of them, the student is dependent. But if they can answer yes to one of the questions, then they would be considered independent and would not have to provide parents information. It's going to ask information about tax income, if a parent is a dislocated worker, and it's going to ask about your assets and untaxed income, and that's where it's really helpful on the FAFSA. When you're on that question, on the right-hand side, it will tell you exactly what to list in there and what not to. You would not list any retirement, so if you have any money in retirement, you would not list that, but you would list things like if you had not your current household, not your current house, but if you had like a second house or a cottage or something like that, you would have to report that information. And it's the same thing for students. Additional information is the housing where students plans to reside, whether it's on campus, off campus, or with parents. And if somebody else prepared your FAFSA for you, like if you maybe paid someone to fill out, sometimes tax preparers fill out FAFSAs, you provide their information. And a certificate of statement of educational purpose. And as I mentioned, the signatures, you could use the PIN number, which we usually recommend because it's the fastest. But you do have other options. You can print out a signature page and mail it in. If you do a paper FAFSA, you would sign the FAFSA and mail that in. That's going to take a lot longer. Even if you print out a signature page, that can hold up the process. The fastest way is just signing electronically with that PIN number. And we only need it for one parent, not both parents, just one parent. These are a list of errors that are very common that we would just want to point out. Social security numbers, they get transposed, or parent enters parent's social security number under students. Divorced, remarried, parental information, income earned by parents and step-parents, untaxed income, household size, just some common mistakes that are made on the FAFSA. So after you fill out the FAFSA, it goes to the central processing system where they notify the student of the processing results, so you'll know when it's processed. It usually takes a few days. If you provided an email address, they're going to provide you like a link, and you can go right back onto your FAFSA and you can review the results. You do want to make sure you read through, it's called a student aid report that they're going to send you, and read through that and just make sure that there isn't any errors. If you see there's errors, you want to fix them. Just check through this, but this comes from the central processing system, and just check over, it's called the student aid report. You'll get an email or a paper copy if you did a paper one. And then at the same time, this is indicating they notify you through email. If you have a PIN number, you just log right back onto the FAFSA and view the results. The school will also get notification, so you can list, like I believe up to 10 schools on the FAFSA if you're undecided, and each school will get a copy of the FAFSA with the results. And that's what we use, it's called the Institutional Student Information Record, we call it an ISER at the school. It's basically just a summary of your FAFSA. Again, review that student aid report, and if there are any errors, you want to go on and make a correction. But you only want to correct things that weren't a snapshot of that day. So you're not going to be changing like assets or anything like that, because that's a snapshot of that day. So you shouldn't be correcting anything like that. But if you see that you made an error anywhere else on the FAFSA, you can go ahead and make those corrections. Again, the other correction is if you use estimated, you can fill out the FAFSA right now, but you'd be using estimated information. You can choose to do that, and then after you file your taxes, you can go back in and link to the IRS or provide your tax information. But you do want to make sure that you go back in then and make that correction, and you do that through correction. You just sign right back onto the FAFSA and you can make a correction. It's fairly simple, but if your school has a priority deadline that is before you're going to have your taxes filed, you can go ahead and fill your FAFSA and then just go back on and make a correction. If you have a circumstance that basically the FAFSA is a snapshot of the previous year, and that's what they're assuming that your next year is going to be. If for some reason that is not accurate, like there's a change in income or really high medical expenses or something out of the ordinary that does not reflect, like your FAFSA is saying, no, that's not what we made, and that's not what we're going to be, or that's not what we're going to be making this year, you can contact the school to see if you can get a special circumstance. It's something that can't be documented on the FAFSA, so you do have to work with the school. And if the school will make any adjustments to your FAFSA if there is significant change that will result in a change to what could be awarded. Just some examples of what may be a special circumstance. And we did want to point out that there is help to help you fill out the FAFSA, and it's College Goal Wisconsin, and we just thought we would provide you with some information. It is on February 26th at Green Bay East High School at 6 p.m. And there's going to be financial aid professionals there to help fill out the application. There'll also be a short presentation, but you can go there and you can get help filling out your FAFSA if you choose. Otherwise, I know any school is usually, we will help fill out FAFSAs for students, and I know we've helped students who weren't even going to NWTC, but each school can help, or if you get stuck, the financial aid offices can help you, but this is a great time to come in and get it done. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Tiffany of Denmark State Bank.
Hi, I'm Tiffany from Denmark State Bank. We just have a couple of things to talk to everyone tonight. We do have an option for parents. If you have equity in your home, we can offer a home equity line of credit. What this does is it is an easy, low-cost option to help parents pay for tuition costs or any other purposes for funds needed. What it does is it's easy to apply with fast approval. It's based on the equity available in your home, and it's tied to a variable interest rate, so the interest is not locked in. However, you only pay interest on the amount of money that you're borrowing at that time. Another benefit of the home equity line of credit would be that interest paid can be tax deductible. If you want to talk to your accountant about that. Another thing for students to think about would be the option to open up a local checking account. By having your checking account local, it gives your parents the ability to put money into your account to help you out if you're away at school. We are offering a $50 coupon to students who open up a checking account at Denmark State Bank. We have a free Visa debit card along with those accounts, and free online banking with free mobile banking, so students and parents, even if you're a couple of hours apart, can keep an eye on that account and check balances, and transfer money for you. What other option that we have for students as you're getting ready to go to college? We have a college rewards credit card that we can offer once you're 18 and applied at a school. It does earn rewards on it, and it's one reward point for every dollar spent. The college credit card is going to help the students to start building up their credit report. It shows a good history of borrowing and repayment options. That credit report building is going to be very beneficial for students once they go to buy the first car or once they're done with school and want to look at renting or buying a house. So that is available to anyone over 18 and enrolled in a college or university. And that's all I have tonight from Denver State Bank.
So I guess, does anybody have any questions for
Yeah.
Karen?
We can take questions, you know, if you have general questions, or Stephanie and I will stick around after the presentation. If you have individual questions, we'll answer those as well.
Yeah. Now I have 3 going to college next year. So do I get to do this 3 times? Because I did the second one today for the second one.
Right.
For
Each
the-
Each student has different schools, you know, it's for the student, so it goes to each school the student is listed. You only have to get 1 PIN number, or you can sign as a parent of all 3, but each student has to have their own PIN number and their own FAFSA.
Okay, because he made it sound like made it sound like I could just take the existing one and add another page.
No, I believe you have 3.
Okay.
What was that, I think it was on the first page of the FAFSA, something about, was it select service or be a member of a?
Selective service.
Selective service.
Yes, what was that?
That is, in order to receive federal financial aid, students, if they're male, have to be registered with the selective services. So like the draft, basically, is what it is. And so they can, if they're not registered, they can elect to say, yes, register me, and they will register them, so that then they're eligible.
Any questions? Okay, we're here if you have any individual questions you'd like to ask. Well, there's one thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention in my presentation. If any of your children signed the Wisconsin Covenant Pledge in 8th grade, in December, you should have gotten a confirmation page from the Wisconsin Covenant office. That confirmation page has to be turned into them by April 1st. And we strongly recommend that you send it certified mail, because if they don't have it, your son, or even if you sent it, your son or daughter is not going to get anything they qualify for through that program. So if you at least have certified that you sent it in, you'll have your receipt that was actually sent in. But it's really important that you do that by April 1st, because if they don't have it, if your son or daughter is eligible for the program, you won't receive the funds. So it's a good thing to remember to get done. You do have to file your FAFSA form as well to get that program.
What type of benefits do they offer through that company?
There's a Wisconsin Covenant, there's a scholar grant and a foundation grant, and depending on that EFC that's calculated from your FAFSA will determine how much you can receive. I believe it's anywhere from $250 up to $2,500, depending what you're eligible for. Then I would go to, it's Wisconsin Covenant. WI.com, or, I don't remember. WisconsinCovenant.wi.gov, G-O-V. Go onto their website, and the form is available online there. And if you think you might have turned it in and not sure, you can contact them as well.
Yes. Would you be able to tell me, did
they're eligible, the federal direct loans, a freshman is eligible for $5,500. Depending on their FAFSA information, up to $3,500 can be in the subsidized loan. Remaining $2,000 would be the unsubsidized loan. So that's the only change they did, is they started allowing the $2,000 in the unsubsidized loan, and then the $3,500 depending on where your eligibility falls as well. So the freshmen and the federal direct loans now have actually an eligibility of up to $5,500.
2,000 in the one where you pay the interest, 3,500 in the.
It could depend, yeah.
And can you tell me what the interest rate is? Did it increase or did it stay the same?
As of right now, it's 3.86. That could change July 1st, but as of right now, that's the interest rate.
So if it's for this year, so if you have a student in it this year, the subsidized is 3.86.
Right.
Till July 1st, and then it can change. Thank you.
Any other questions? That's a good question. It depends on the school. If they want you to fill it out, and have your FAFSA completed by a certain date, you can. I usually recommend it, but if it's not, and that's coming from, my college, but you guys use, I think at St. Norbert, a lot of estimated information.
Yeah, we generally tell families, if you're gonna have your taxes done by March 1st, then submit it with your actual tax information. But if your taxes aren't gonna be done until, middle of April, or if you're gonna be filing an extension or something like that, then go on and use projected income and get that, so you get that first FAFSA receipt date. That's the main key for a lot of the programs. So we always say a preference date of March 1st. A lot of programs, it's more for the state programs, and I don't think we've ever had a state program cut off before April 1st, but just to ensure that it doesn't happen this year, we usually tell the students to file by March 1st. If they don't have their taxes aren't done, use estimated information. It's with the IRS data retrieval. It's so easy now to just go back on and pull in that IRS information after you've filed, that it's an easy process to do. So.
On that FAFSA, is that just the parent's income, or is that if the child is working, is that their income as well?
Both. Yep,
Both.
the question is if both, both parent and student will be included on the FAFSA income.
Okay.
Income as well.
The expected family contribution is made of two parts, a parent contribution and a student contribution.